Welcome, Nerdy Sports audience, to part 2 of our broadcast talking about the NBA free agency. We're literally 2 minutes away till the NBA free agency starts. This is June 30th, Friday, June 30th, the last day of June. And in part 1, we talked about trades like Kristaps Porzingis to the Celtics and Marcus Smart to the Grizzlies and Jordan Poole to the Wizards. But of course, most importantly, Chris Paul, Steph Curry's biggest rival of all time, to the Warriors. But now, today's biggest news has been the James Harden news. James Harden didn't really necessarily request a trade, but he's requested 2 previous trades, and a third request would be the most of NBA history. Now, the Sixers basically are like, all right, we'll sign you money, and we're looking to trade you. We don't want you on the team. We want to give Maxey. Maybe they'll trade Maxey. Maybe they'll give Maxey more playing time. Scotty, what are your thoughts on the Philadelphia 76ers, and what would you do if you had Joel Embiid?
If I'm the Sixers, I would like to be able to trade Harden for, honestly, I'd be happy if I could just get some good role players. I think Maxey takes a leap forward. If I can get some good role players for him and really say, okay, Embiid, you know what? No more excuses for you, because due to James Harden's playoff performances, I think it's kind of slipped under their radar. It's given Embiid a little bit of a pass this year for having a not so good second round. I understand he was hurt and whatnot, and he missed the first 2 games, but he's getting a little bit of a pass. He was the MVP. You're up 3 games to 2, and everybody's like, James Harden did it again. And nobody's like, yeah, Embiid could have taken over game 6 or 7. I didn't see Embiid stepping up. I didn't see him, you've seen players in the past. They're like, I'm putting the team on my back. I'm dropping 40. I'm carrying this team to the championship, or in this case, just the next round.
Yeah.
So if I'm Embiid, I'm kind of wiping my brow. I'm like, whoo, nobody is firing a single shot at me. Like, because he's just using like a James Harden body vest right now. It's like, it was him. It was all him. It's holding him in front of him. It's like Operation Human Shield. He's just walking, holding him in front of him. Like, it was all him.
Oh
but
my God.
I think at this point, I'd say you have a coaching upgrade, which, 20 years ago, that would have been blasphemy.
Nicky Nurse.
I'm a huge fan. 20 years ago, people would have been like, oh my God, Doc Rivers is one of the top 3 coaches. How the mighty has fallen. And you have a player in Maxey that it looks like he's definitely taking a leap forward. Like, he's taking 2 leap forward. That's the type of player you want. You want a young player where they're seeing the steps. So
he's 22.
He takes a leap forward. Embiid, if he just can take his regular season and play that way in the playoffs, that team alone has championship possibilities. So if you could just get a couple of role players for Harden, a little addition by subtraction, we mentioned that a couple of times in other trades, then I'm happy with them. So my goal as Philly is I want to trade Harden to free up minutes for my young guys. And if I could just get a couple role players, I'm happy. I'm not even picky, honestly. I'm looking at multiple teams who can give me the best package of some role players that can make my team better. But I think they're in good position. I really do. We have to see what they get for him, and I think they're definitely going to trade him. That's what it looks like. But I think there's a good potential. As much as I love the Boston trade, we know there are issues there. Miami feels like they're still that one piece short. Maybe they get Dame, maybe they don't. So, and Milwaukee, they got some age issues. Middleton, Lopez, what's happening there? So, the door is open for Philly to make a run.
Yeah. I mean, you were a big defender of them last podcast. So I was a little scared you were about to skew away a little bit here, but I'm glad you're still on board. I mean, look, Joel Embiid was embarrassing in Game 7 versus the Boston Celtics. We've already gone through that. He, shit the bed. But dude, you killed me with that James Harden bulletproof vest right in front of me. It's like, don't blame me. I won the MVP. It's not my fault. It's this guy. It's his toxic energy over here. And it's pretty bad when you request trades, off the Brooklyn Nets when you have Kyrie and KD. Look, we all know that wouldn't work, but for you to be like, yo, I got to get out of here. Wow, that blew up so quickly. And then our biggest point last week, we were talking about Damian Lillard. And I'm begging, please, Miami, do something, please do something. So hopefully today, they're going to make it happen, because that's exactly what they would need. I would love a little Fred VanVleet, but Dame's got a lot more experience, a lot more pedigree, and he'll bring some quality leadership. But I think I would take any of those guys. I would take Fred VanVleet or Damian Lillard. But clearly, Well, I don't know what they're waiting on. Do you know what Miami's up to? Have you heard anything?
I haven't heard anything, but I think there's a level of confidence because you have to trying to look at a three-dimensional chess here or something. They really didn't make an effort at all on Beal, and a lot of people said they would. Like the media's like, oh, they're gonna make a move on him. Maybe they could get him for less than Lillard or something, but they actually didn't really put any offers out there that I'm aware of. And that tells me if I want to take it to the next step, connect the dots, like that they're confident that they could get Dame or something else for them to not even try. Be like, nope, like other teams, you fight over Beal. We still got our eye on the prize here. Ideally, the prize looks like it's going to be Lillard, and I think that's probably going to happen. I'm leaning toward maybe being optimistic. I think it's going to happen. If not, I definitely trust I trust Pat Riley. I trust the culture. I trust Bolster. I think they're going to get something done. I would honestly be shocked if they stayed pat and just kept the team as is. That would be surprising to me. So I think they got
They're
something in
always
the works.
building.
And
They're always building for better.
Even though I haven't heard anything, you haven't heard anything, we know any sport, good teams, they don't leak. A leaky boat is a bad team. There's no leaks out of Miami. You don't hear things. You won't hear it until after it's done. So, it could be done in 2 minutes from now, but you wouldn't hear anything. So I'm not worried about I don't need to hear rumors about it.
You're making me feel a lot better. Oh man. I was like, that's why I took my time when I was a little boy, a little too strategic about it. But because my parents weren't really big sports fans, I was like, I want to, my brother's like, once you pick a team, you can't flip. I was like, okay, I want to see what they do. I want to see the type of moves they make. I can't believe I did this. But hey, I'm still, 26 years later, a big sports nerd. So I guess it shouldn't surprise me too much. But I was like, I want to pick a good organization. And that's what I did with all my teams. And that's why, Philadelphia Eagles fan as well. And we'll talk about them more next week. Let's stick to basketball. So we have James Harden in news, exercises his $35.6 million player option for the 76ers. I'm just sick of this guy, man. Like, he is so talented, I know, but for him to it's almost like he never takes accountability for anything. It's never, oh, what could I do better? And I don't know what his situation was trying to go to Houston. I understand, from a personal perspective, maybe he's like, I feel like a man in Houston. I feel like the best version of myself there. It seems to be a great city. It's right by Mexico. I'm sure it has amazing Tex-Mex, great food, great culture outside of Chicago and LA and New York, probably one of the biggest cities. So I could understand the attraction to go there, and they got Ime Udoka, who seems to be, outside of that news and the Celtics, seems to be a stand-up guy overall, at least a good mentor. People in Boston loved him. It was really tough for them, but you got to get that toxic energy out. Just like Jordan Poole, just like Marcus Smart, got to get that toxicity out of the organization when you see something. Now, I'm following ESPN right now. We shall see what they do. I don't know what ball's going to drop. What was that?
I said, what's left of ESPN?
Let's do that. So one of my favorite things in all sports is sort of the business behind sports, specifically commentating. And I guess it's the position I would personally want to do, calling games, analyzing games. And here we are right now talking about trades. And luckily we're in 2023 where I don't need ESPN to sign me to be able to get my name out there. I could just do it myself. Literally just using a phone that's 10 years old, got a little mic in here that costs $50. I shipped you a mic. It doesn't cost too much money just to get up and running. There's no excuses. But all of a sudden today, you sent me a text. Doesn't really surprise me. Todd, what was his name? McShay, right? Todd McShay. Todd McShay, good old NFL draft boy. He is out of ESPN. And Scotty and I
and a lot of others.
Scotty and I have been very big fans of Fox Sports 1, or Fox Sports in general, especially once they got Colin Cowherd. All of a sudden they got Colin Cowherd, Nick Wright's voice.
First domino, they started picking up. Then after that, they just started picking up. He was the first one. Then they got Skip Bayless. Nick Wright's become very popular. They picked up Shannon Sharp, who actually at one time I think was on ESPN for a little bit, and
now he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. But I'm saying they picked up a lot of names. They've been putting a lot of money in there. Chris Broussard, former ESPN player. They have I don't know if I'd say post as well, but they've taken a decent amount of ESPN talent that ESPN let go, and they like, oh, we can do better than what you did with this person. You weren't utilizing him properly. So I like what they do.
Like, I love Stephen A. Smith and Scott Van Pelt, and obviously JJ Redick and Richard Jefferson. I love them as players talking about the NBA now. They have amazing podcasts individually. I love them tremendously. And I think, Paul George, maybe when he retires, or Draymond Green will get signed by ESPN. I don't think ESPN is going to stop spending money, but they really don't even have like the main sports. Like, they're putting all their money on like Formula One racing and like random golf events. And they even lost like Major League Baseball. And Monday Night Football, speaking of football, Monday Night Football is one of the worst. It's awful. I hate it. Yeah, I hate Monday Night Football, man, from a commentating perspective.
Yeah, I don't want to call it names, but it's just,
why not?
It's not they could do better. Let's just say that much. And I think you have to do better because, let's be honest, the NFL is the most popular sport by like a mile, which means if you're commentating on the NFL, your job is easier than commentating on baseball. Baseball is a slower sport, so to entertain the fans, you know what I mean? You got to give them, because there's a lot of gap time. You know what I mean?
Well, it's faster now, way faster, way less in between.
Big boost for baseball. You know, that's a different conversation.
NFL has way more time talking about like marketing. So much commercial time, which from a commentating perspective, you don't have to worry about that because you're off the air. But I don't think the NFL is easy. There's a lot of guys to handle. There's 22 men on the field at a time. That's a lot going on. It's not as difficult as hockey. Like, that's just, oh my God, I can't even breathe. Like, but it's mainly just one guy. Like, he's just going off. Like, there's not enough back and forth. I don't like the whole NBA like 3-man team. I would much rather like a 2-man team or 2-woman, 2-men.
Yeah,
like, it doesn't have. I love Doris Burke. Give Doris Burke credit. Like, women could absolutely do it. She's one of my favorites in the game. But
like when you watch
I like two
NBA
people.
League Pass and you get the local channel instead of like an ESPN, so you get it's always two. It's normally you got play by play, you call it color commentator. That formula has worked going back. For it feels like the beginning of time. I don't know that we needed a third person in there. Just a little confusing there. I'm not saying the NFL is easy, so maybe I'm wording that wrong. What I'm trying to say is that people are going to watch the NFL no matter what. There's so much interest in it. People are betting and doing all these things that, like, I feel like way more people that would kill for that job, that you feel like you could put out a better performance, kind of like put out better commentators. Like, you don't have to say, oh, this guy isn't doing a great job, so we're going to stick with him, because there's a conveyor belt of people that would kill for that job. So, if it's not clicking, and I feel like Monday Night Football just doesn't have a pop, then just move on, bring in somebody new. You never know who's gonna be amazing. Like, most people like Tony Romo. A lot of people I remember actually criticized would he be good, and now he's basically universally considered the best. So you just don't know who's going to be amazing. If it's not clicking, move on.
Yeah, I mean, didn't ESPN sign Joe Buck? Like, was it Fox that did the Super Bowl this year? Like, Fox just had Greg Olson. They decided not to put their money in Joe Buck and that team, Troy Aikman as well. But I was concerned about Greg Olson, but he did a wonderful job. Yeah, but just as you mentioned, people don't pay attention as much to that. I just don't really like the whole like team the ESPN has. Like, they don't talk about the game enough. I mean, Doris Burke does a great job, but she's ESPN too.
Pass in the NFL. I'm going to watch it no matter how bad the commentary is. So you're getting a pass. And you don't want to rest on your laurels and say, okay, well, people are still watching, the ratings are still good, so I don't need to improve the team. Like, you should say, okay, I feel like we need to shake it up or improve the team, and improve it anyway. Like, just because you don't have to, because you're going to get the ratings, doesn't mean you shouldn't. I think that's a better way of what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, I just confirmed it. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman both signed by ESPN, so they're at least throwing money at them. They're trying. They just Monday Night Football.
27 on-air personalities, I believe the number was. So they have some money to spend now.
That's what you do. That's what you do, right? You got to rebuild. Look, they're not going to stop. But are they still worldwide leader in sports? I don't know. I'm definitely less interested overall. I tune in just to see what they're talking about overall, and they do a decent enough job where their app is fully engaging, and I could just have it on in the background, see what's going on. By the way, while we were talking, the first name dropped. It's Draymond Green to the Warriors. 4 years, $100 million, $25 million a year. Sweet deal for the Warriors.
Yeah, he opted out. He opted out. I believe his opt-in, I think it was 27. I believe
something like
so.
that.
It's a little pay cut. Now it's 4 years. I heard people saying they were hoping in more like 3 years because the back end of his contract could be more of a he'll be on the down end. He'll be, what is he going to be, like 38 when this contract ends, something like that, 39. But I feel like it's a good contract, honestly, for both people. I feel like it's good for the team. Obviously, they get about $25 million. That's a discount. They're looking to win now. Obviously, but as we mentioned, being an older team, they're trying to win now, and they don't care if the last year's contract, say Draymond is basically a shell of himself. They don't care. They know the Warriors are prepared. That they're saying we want one more ring before this team is basically completely blown up by age. It happens to everybody. You look at the Bulls when Jordan retired. You could look at the Lakers when Magic retired, at the Celtics when Bird retired. Like when you have a legendary run as a team, I'm talking team, not just a player, like a team that's a championship contender for 10 years. Eventually it does end. And when it ends, you're normally bad for like a while, like 5-6 years. So they're not worried about 4 years from now. They're saying instead of signing him for 3 years, say 33 million, basically 100 million there, we'll give you this 100 million, help us with the cap over 4 years. And in your last year, we're going to be paying for probably very little production, but who cares?
If you look at NBA history, winners come with continuity. More than anything else, talent matters, yes. But we don't often get those scrapped together win a title teams. Even the Heatles lost in year one. And that team was destined to win 7 championships, according to the blasphemy that LeBron, literally the worst thing I guess he's ever done in his life, was say not 1, not 2, not 3, not 7. Oh, we're going to win it all. Like, come on. Like, that's fine. Like, you have confidence. That's good. You should have confidence, especially when you're teaming up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. But look, we got Draymond Green officially back with the Warriors. We got DeAndre Ayton also earlier today signed a pretty monster deal. I think it was like $133 million for 4 years with the Suns. So they're officially the Beal, KD, Booker.
I would like to touch on that for a minute.
Let's go. One last thing I'll say is Bradley Beal called it Book Nation. KD is not the guy. Bradley Beal knows he's not the guy. DeAndre Ayton doesn't have the personality for it. I have more faith in this team after what we talked about last week. How do you feel? Different, or do you feel the same?
As far as that statement, that's a great statement. It's the right statement. It's a true statement. You want that you want the new guy to acknowledge, you just mentioned the Heat, and it's like when LeBron got there, he was better than Wade. And they were like, it took like within a month or much less probably, Wade was like, okay, you're the leader here. But then LeBron's response back was like, well, Miami's still like, this is still Wade Nation. Like, I might lead the team on the court because I'm the better player here, but everybody knew it was Dwayne Wade that was the heart and soul, and it was his. He was like the foundation, the statue building, jersey retiring. The fans loved him. So it's nice when you say, I'm not even talking talent now. You can say, oh, KD's the best. So saying, listen, this is Booker's town. Love that. And that's a good sign that a player can move in Beal and be openly say that. That's a good sign.
Yep.
I still have some worries here. I was hoping they were going to trade Aiden for some depth. Keeping him, I see as a bad move.
But Scotty, you just mentioned before, size matters. Size matters.
Yes.
And he's one of the best big men in the game. All they have is like mid-range shooting between those guys, Booker, KD, and Beal. And now they have a mature guy. We were talking about bad organizations. He spent his whole career in Washington. Kristaps Porzingis is finally with a winner. Bradley Beal is finally with winners. Booker is definitely a winning person. KD is one of the greatest talents we've ever seen. Like, he may have failed a little bit, and he may have really not lived up to the expectations we're hoping for. But he also has had a few injuries based off his body size, as we mentioned with Wembanyama. But Bradley Beal can make it happen. he could like figure out a good role. He's a certified bucket. He's a 30-point game guy. They don't need points, sure, but not relying on KD and Booker to get 90. Like Ayton could easily get 20 and 10. I mean, that's all they need from him. And defensive presence.
I'm not sure he's going to get 20 because I don't think he's going to touch the ball. So unless you're talking 10 tip-ins, I'm not sure. He'll be lucky if he gets 2 plays run for him. So maybe he gets 4 points there and like say 5 tip-ins, so like 14 points, maybe something like that. I mean, on paper, 2K, this is amazing, but we know Ayton was not engaged. Everybody says like Monty Williams is like the greatest guy to get along with, and he couldn't get along with him at all. We know Chris Paul had issues with him also. Now Chris Paul can have issues with a lot of people here and there, but that the point is that what I'm trying to say is Ayton is definitely has some chemistry issues in general. And
yeah, he didn't like Monty Williams. That says more than I didn't like Chris Paul.
Exactly. So I'm just worried about the depth. This team,
I'm worried about Ayton. I agree.
Has a little bit. It's got possible chemistry issues. We're hoping that Frank Vogel could do good. He did win a championship with the Lakers, so he's got some pedigree there. But like we got new coach, we got basically 2 new players because Durant is half new player. He played like 10 regular season games in the playoffs, so he's almost like a new player. Then we got Beal, new player. We got some age at least, not as old as the Warriors, and some injury issues here, particularly with Durant. And without depth, there's some worries. 2K starters only, no fatigue setting on. This team is unstoppable. But
no injuries, no fatigue.
Yeah, that's how we all play when we play at home. It's like, turn fatigue off, turn injuries off, and you want to play with your friends. That's how you want to play the game, right? But that's not how the real NBA played. So I'm a little worried. Beal, even he's had injuries recently. His first 7 years in the league, he was great. I mean, I shouldn't say just great, but like healthy. He's had injuries.
Yeah.
KD obviously he missed a bunch of games in a layup drill. He's become very injury prone as a guy that wasn't initially. So I'm worried between the injury possibilities and that lack of depth. I mean, that scares me. That lack of depth is scary. You look what happened with the Nugget game. They had nobody
any worse depth-wise than they were last year. They still got to rely on guys like Josh Okogie. Hopefully they could grab a few guys here. I know they don't have the money for it. Like that's the whole point of why it's so terrible, why I was so against it, because Bradley Beal is the worst contract in the NBA. But they at least got some talent. And you can scrap guys on veteran minimums.
Can they? I mean, they've had so much money. I don't even know if they could do a veteran minimum. I don't know. I'm not a capologist, but this team looks like this is the team we're running with, and I'm just not sure what to do about that. You got the depth issue and the Ayton issue. I mean, those are some big issues that, like we keep saying the same thing. On paper, they look amazing. I think there's a lot to be said going in, and they got rolled by Denver, all things being equal. Yeah, it was 6 games, but it was the biggest blowout of 6 games. Yeah, average margin of victory for Denver was, I believe, 17.5. So, I don't know. Like Beal, you're bringing in another scorer, and where's the depth? Unless you can convince him to come off the bench, which I don't know how you can. The guy averaged 30 points 2 years ago. Like, what are you going to do about the depth? I just don't know what you're going to do about that.
A lot of teams are going to have to convince players to do that. There's a lot of really good players in the NBA, and every draft, it only increases and increases and increases. But yes, there's going to be a time where, these guys are no longer able to be starters. I have faith in Chris Paul, going back to that, like coming off the bench. Like, by the way, another name dropped before we get too much into the Warriors, because I could easily do that. Let's talk about the Washington Wizards. They just signed Kyle Kuzma, 4 years, $103 million. Now, we mentioned the Chris Paul deal a little bit, but we talked about the Warriors a lot. We didn't really talk much about the Wizards. We did mention, at least I mentioned, that Jordan Poole is going to be likely one of the greatest fantasy basketball players of next year. And, they got a pretty decent team. They're a sleeper. They could be the worst team in the league, which is very possible, or they could be a playing team. How do you feel about the Wizards?
Man, the Wizards are confusing to me as far as like, for a team that is, they're in DC, like, and this happens with the Washington football team. I mean, you're in a city that should be able to attract free agents. Generally NBA stars, of all the stars, I feel like are attracted to big cities. They like the LAs. They like the Miami. They want to go to places. It's shocking to me how bad Washington has been for so long for what should be like a free agent destination, and how they've been bad forever. I'm happy that they're shaking things up, but I don't think that these moves are going to do much. I don't have a. I don't think they're going to be that good. I mean, the bottom half of the East is not as good as the bottom half of the West, so maybe they could sneak in the plan. Definitely possible, but I don't love the moves. I mean, you're hoping that Jordan Poole is definitely different, like that you're getting him from 2 years ago instead of last year, and and you're getting that contract with him, so you got that to deal with. I'm not a huge fan of Washington's future. I do like Kuzma overall as a good player, but he's a good 4, not even 3. If you could have him as your 4th player, then that is a perfect spot for him. But I don't know. Washington, I think their ceiling this year, I'll give them a ceiling of the 7 seed.
You said the same about the Warriors. So you're saying the Warriors?
Get out of here. West Coast, East Coast. Well, West Coast, East Coast. If the Warriors win the East, I would raise their ceiling to like a 4 seed. So I'm just saying.
The East is good. The East is good. The Wizards aren't making the playoffs. They're not making the playoffs. They're a decent team.
East is top heavy.
They got like Denny Avdia as your like 3rd guy. They're a fun team. Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma. Okay, cool. They're fine. Tyus Jones and the whole like Marcus Smart trade. They're cool. But at least we were able to mention something. Another team that's at least more interesting. But do you think, before we move on to the next guy, do you think the Jazz, so the Utah Jazz are in a very similar position as we mentioned in part 1. Utah Jazz get rid of Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. Then all of a sudden, they outlasted expectations and they didn't make the playoffs, but they almost made the playoffs last year. The Wizards can be in the same position. They get rid of Kristaps Porzingis. They get rid of Bradley Beal. They throw money at young guys. Jordan Poole has to get money eventually. Kyle Kuzma just got his $100 million deal. Super similar, by the way, to Draymond Green. He did 4 years, 103. Draymond Green did 4 years, 100. First 2 guys off the board right now. So the 3rd guy is Bruce Brown, a man that just won the NBA championship. It's a copycat league. Every team is looking to do what the Denver Nuggets did. And that is, in my opinion, veteran leadership. Bringing in guys like Bruce Brown, leaning on guys like Jeff Green, and drafting well. Christian Brown, not Braun. I'll correct myself this time. Christian Brown. Amazing. But Bruce Brown gets 2 years, $45 million for the Indiana Pacers. That was interesting to me. I thought he would go to a more contending team. The Pacers were god-awful last year.
Yeah.
How do you think of him? Do you think the Pacers are a good fit for him? Or you think it's just like throw this guy $22.5 million a year?
I mean, for him personally, it seems like a kind of money grab. Like, and I'm not blaming him at all. He got the ring, veteran. Take one last big paycheck before you ride off into the sunset. Indiana almost doesn't seem like worth talking about. I mean, they're going to be terrible. I don't,
I'm cool with that.
I don't know. They what decent players they have also been on the trade block multiple times. So you have to wonder in the inside of their head, are they annoyed? Are they half checked out at the door because you've been on the trade block a couple of times? And we're humans. That's going to annoy you. So I'm not sure where Indiana is going. It's not like they got some awesome draft pick. They're not like San Antonio here. It's like, oh, we got Wemby. Like, where are they going? I don't know. It's the type of team that you could almost forget exists in the NBA, which is irony for like the Hoosier State.
That's
it's
rough.
like, oh, this is. I'm sorry, I'm talking about. You're thinking like the Hoosier State, and famous. Indiana, like where? What's it? Who? What? Indiana? I'm like, I have to look at my phone. Like, where did they finish last year? I don't even know that. I mean, honestly, this team's boring.
They were one of the worst teams last year.
I love
Tyrese Halliburton, though. I love Tyrese Halliburton. And in this draft, they reached for this guy, Bilal Koulibaly from France, who was Wemby's number 2, who all of a sudden, another example of Bruce Brown, Wembanyama, everybody looking at him. They saw this guy, Bilal Koulibaly, and they're like, ooh, maybe we'll draft him. All of a sudden, Bruce Brown gets a lot more playtime on TV, a lot more kudos in the NBA, sphere because of Jokic. Similar philosophies here, actually. the Pacers need to be smarter.
But I do like you mentioned Utah there in a second. I like where Utah's going.
Yeah.
I mean, they overachieved. It's always great if you can overachieve as a team that nobody thought was going to get good. They got themselves all those draft picks. They have tons of assets right now to make a move. Their biggest problem with Utah is honestly the fact that it's in Utah and it's not a free agent destination. Honestly, that's the biggest problem. If they were located on the coast somewhere, west or east, I think they would be a free agent destination. Like they got money, they got draft picks galore, they got young players that are getting better. So Lauri Markkanen, he had a great year. We mentioned Kessler Walker earlier.
Kessler.
Yeah, that's it. Walker Kessler. Sorry, and I think
Jordan Clarkson.
They're in a good
Taylor
spot.
Horton Tucker,
they're building well.
Chris Dunn.
And you look at them. The organization is run like well. You look from coaching to some good trades. They went with the method. They blew it up, but they blew it up in like the right way. They said, you know what? I said this earlier. Better too soon than too late. They said it's not working. Got rid of Mitchell. Got rid of Gobert. Though I do love Mitchell. They got a lot back in return to rebuild. Instead of waiting to a point where you can't rebuild because you have nothing left to trade. So I like where they're going. It's another young team, and it just makes me look at the bottom, like teams that didn't make the playoffs. Wow, the West is stacked. Like I had to peek down on my phone here. I'm like, these teams are the West. It's stacked. There's so many good teams. I'm really excited for next year. That's what it makes me think of. This year was like such a parity year, even ironically. In hindsight, Denver crushed everybody, but like entering the playoffs, it was so jam-packed with teams. The difference between the 2 seed and the 8 seed was like 5 games in the West, particularly. I'm really excited for next year. I'm looking at the West, and there's so many good teams there, so much potential. The only team I could see, to me, taking a large step back, you touched on it earlier, is Memphis. There's a lot of trouble, I think, in there. So I think they're going to be the team I think has the biggest drop backwards. We know Ja's going to miss 25 games.
We shall see. They're trying at least, but I think the whole Marcus Smart trade, 2 first-rounders for him, that's a little steep. That's a lot for a guy.
I think it's way too steep, because you're trading for a veteran, so you're trading for win now. And I understand you could say on paper they ended as the 2 seed last year, but to trade away a couple draft picks. For like, if you're going to trade Marcus Smart, you have to be like right in that contender list, say top 4 teams, and they're top 4. They are top 4 if you look at the seeding. They were the 2 seed in the West by definition. That's top 4, but they didn't finish anywhere near top 4. They went out in the first round. So you're trading for a veteran that's going to give you maybe 2 more years before he's kind of done, so to say. You're trading away your future, and the only situation this works out in is if he doesn't have to play. If he can sit down and play therapist for Ja, then that is worth its weight in gold. Otherwise, I don't feel like they got better. I think they traded away a little too much. And a defensive specialist, when Memphis was a great defensive team, they got the defense player of the year. They needed scoring, not defense.
He's an overrated defender.
Like, as I'm saying, his defense took a drop off 2 years ago. His defense player of the year, you could see it. Again, small guys age a little quicker. You could see it was dropping off fast. They needed scoring. They needed. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this. They would have been better off picking up like Poole, for example. I'm not saying he would have been good fit. I'm just using an example. As far as they would have been better off with a scorer that can't play defense than a defensive player that can't play offense. They needed scoring. You look at the playoffs against the Lakers, they couldn't put the ball in the bucket. And Josh going to miss the first 25 games. I guess Marcus Smart is going to start at point guard. Like, what's going to happen there? I think they take the biggest drop back. They ended last year 51-31 in regular season, the 2 seed. I could see them falling down 4 or 5 seeds, honestly.
Even more.
I would make the boldest prediction. I will say that Memphis might miss the playoffs.
Yeah, I believe.
And that would be obviously from the 2 seed to like an 11 seed if you look at the play-in. I mean, they'll make the play-in at least, but you look at teams last year, OKC, they should take a step up. If Zion plays, New Orleans takes a step up. I'm looking at like the bottom of the playoffs for the West here. I like what Utah's building. You hope that if there's any chemistry in Dallas, they should take a step forward because they didn't even make the play-in. And then we got San Antonio, Wimby. Who knows what maybe they could make the play-in at least. It's a lot of competition there. Meanwhile, below Memphis, the 3 seed Sacramento should be better. the 4 seed Phoenix should be better, particularly regular season because they have a full regular season, so win total. Like, who below them is going to get worse? The only other team I could see getting worse is maybe the Clippers because of all those injuries and whatnot, but I could see Memphis dropping all the way from the 2 seed to out of the playoffs.
Yeah, but if
Not
they
a
actually
fan of
play,
their direction.
especially with the Clippers, if like Westbrook like continues his hot surge, you know, if he finally found a good fit there, he's obviously not good at coming off the bench. Hopefully Chris Paul could be a lot better coming off the bench. But yeah, I agree with you, man. Utah Jazz have better potential than the Memphis Grizzlies. And they even got rid of Dylan Brooks. You know, it's not official, but seems to be rumored. Oh, we have another guy. Jerami Grant, 5 years, $160 million. Re-signs with the Trailblazers. I don't think that's enough to keep Damian Lillard around. It's not like improving the team. Jerami Grant was on the Pistons and he moved to the Blazers because he wanted to get more money. But damn, that's a whole lot of money for Grant. 5 years, 160. Woo,
I was going to say, my first thought is that's an overpay. My second thought is you mentioned Damian Lillard. I know we're running out of time. We got the last 30 seconds here. My second thought is that to me is another sign he's out the door because you can't keep him and Lillard at Lillard's contract. The only way that 160 works is if you know that Lillard's being traded. So you got to connect the dots. That contract to me is another push. Lillard is out the door. You can't pay 160 to him. You're paying Lillard, what, 50 million this year, 60 million next year? You got to make up some money somewhere. So I think that's not keeping Lillard. That's pushing him out the door. They already know, they know he's gone, and they're bringing in cheap players, so to say, like low contract players. I'm not talking about talent. So they can afford to overpay Grant because they're going to have money to spend.
All right. Nerdy Sports audience, come back for part 3 because there's so much NBA news to drop. Let's go. Right back at you.